Joining us now, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, will be sitting behind the president, of course, as he speaks to Congress tonight. Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I want to talk about our domestic issues, but first, of course, overwhelming everybody right now is watching the horror unwinding in Ukraine, the valor of these courageous people. We understand that President Zelensky, the White House is confirming, spoke to President Biden today for about 30 minutes. And President Zelensky has said he wants, a strong speech on Ukraine tonight. What do you want to hear the president to say to Vladimir Putin and the world tonight?
Well, thank you, Andrea. It's wonderful always to be with you. A little over a week ago, a bipartisan group of members of Congress, House and Senate, were at the Munich Security Conference. At that time, we were, again, united as we are now in our support for NATO, for the European Union and their efforts to secure Europe and to support the people of Ukraine. This is remarkable. The attack on Ukraine is attack on democracy. We all know that. The bullying efforts of President Putin are efforts because he is afraid of a democracy on his doorstep, which Ukraine proposes to the Russian people. So for him to use this overwhelming strength of the Russian military to go into a country because they are democratic, expecting them to welcome him is just something that it doesn't make any sense. We all salute and pray for the people of Ukraine. And again, we are united in our respect and work and cooperation with the European Union and the NATO as well as the G7. Tonight, I hope the president will give a message of confidence to the people of Ukraine that we are there for them. We are there with military assistance. We are there with humanitarian assistance. We're there with loan guarantees for their economy. We are there with very severe sanctions to punish Putin and his economy and his, I don't know what you would call them, just his compatriots in his conspiracy against democracy in the world. We expect the president also to be talking about something significant in our further support for Ukraine.
Madam Speaker, I see you're wearing the American and Ukraine flags on your lapel. Excuse me. And when you were in Munich, I'm sure you, as I, watched his speech. The courage of this man in rallying his country against overwhelming odds, including the fact that it has now been reported, and we have not confirmed this yet, but have you heard anything to confirm that they have actually used a vacuum or a thermobaric bomb against civilian populations, which would be a war crime?
Well, again, when we were in Munich in a bipartisan, bicameral way, we heard President Zelensky. He came there and made his appeal for help. He challenged the Western security infrastructure, whether it's EU, NATO, or the United Nations, to say we're all here for peace, but that's not what's happening in our country. To see his courage now to stay there with the threat of Russia coming in and attacking civilian sites, it is a war crime. Unfortunately for us, unfortunately for the situation, we cannot go in militarily. We can help in every possible way that we can with assistance, whether it's lethal, non-lethal, humanitarian, economic, and in every way. But to be drawn into a conflict with with President Biden being such a unifier in all of this, and President Putin being a taunter for World War III. It just can't happen. But to see the courage of Zelensky, and not only that, to see the former president, they're not of the same party, but to see the former president on the ground there helping to lead the people of Ukraine is a remarkable thing to see, and just the determination of the people. So we are at a situation in our lives, all of us who've observed war and peace over time and know history, to see that this is highly unacceptable to civilized human behavior. For Putin to go in there and attack civilian sites, to make up stories about them, something must be wrong there, and you would hope that there would be some in Russia who would be a check on him. Fortunately, some of the news is getting through to the Russian people, and you see protesters and demonstrations in Russia against the use of force. But again, they have a closed system, so not everybody knows just yet.
I want to move on to the State of the Union, but let me just ask you, you said something is off there, something's wrong there.
Yeah.
Something wrong with Vladimir Putin? He's been so isolated, he doesn't get advice or take advice from anyone. What do you think is going on there?
I don't know what is the matter there. I've talked to heads of state who have met with him, and they just take at face value the evil that he is putting forth as something that we have to deal with. They're not making a diagnosis of his health. Some people say he has cancer, and some people say he has brain fog from COVID. Other people just think he's a complete raging bully. But whatever it is, the people of Ukraine are paying the price for it. And unfortunately, the people of Russia are going to have to pay a price for it in economic terms with the very strictest of sanctions. I want to commend President Biden for the sequencing of events that he has put forth, for how he has worked in a unified way with our allies on all of this, because no matter what happens, whatever Putin may define as a success for him, it is a Pyrrhic victory, because in the long term, Russia will suffer and Putin will fail.
Now, the polls show Americans deeply pessimistic about the economy. Inflation is only going to rise with what's happening on the energy front with this war. What do you attribute to that? What the decline in the president's polls, even on COVID, on how he's handled it, what can he do to turn this around?
Well, I think tonight's going to be very important, because for people to appreciate what the president has done and that working together with the Congress, they have to know what it is. President Lincoln said public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost everything. Without it, practically nothing. But people have to know for public sentiment to. And so, of course, we're very proud that the president has, under his term, 6.6 million new jobs were created. Of course, the private sector had a role in that. The unemployment rate has come down from 6.9 to just under 4%. The issues that relate to the well-being of the American people are being well served. But people still are suffering. They have kitchen table concerns, and that's where their reaction springs from. So I hope tonight that in addition to spreading the word about what good things and why we should be hopeful, you'll hear an empathetic speech about why we're concerned that this has not reached all of America's families. There are kitchen table concerns about paying the bills, whether it's food, rent, credit card bills, the education of their children, their retirement, whatever it is, the same kinds of issues that keep people up at night and affect their opinion as to what the state of the nation is. But there's no one more empathetic than Joe Biden. There's no one who cares more. We are so blessed that he's president at this time, because we do have to build America better, and that's what he is doing. And doing so in a way that, again, grows the prosperity in our country with many more people participating in it, builds the infrastructure of our country while preserving and protecting our planet, by doing so with equity and fairness in our system. And he has a vision for America that is a big one. It's not all complete, and the message that people have to hear is that he is here for them. Here's what he's done, here's what he intends to do, and we're not finished until the American people feel the comfort level they need to feel in our economy. So I'm really very, very proud of him. Again, on the global scene, from the global security standpoint, at home, economic security for our families, our values are well served, and tonight will be a great speech. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it will be pivotal in terms of COVID as well, which has had a direct impact on the attitudes and rates that people give to governance because COVID still has its remnants. But I think tonight will be pivotal in terms of our values, his vision, his plan, his knowledge, and his connection to the American people.
Now, I know you've got to run, but let me quickly ask you about that, because the CDC mask guidance, of course, changed last week. Today, D.C. officially lifted its indoor mask guidance. Are you going to be wearing a mask tonight?
No, I'm not going to be wearing a mask tonight. If I had little children or if I were around little grandchildren, I would, because some of them would not be vaccinated. Or if I were around a person or were a person with some kind of a condition that would make me susceptible to it. So I think people have to use their judgment about it. But I do think that if people make their own judgment, I make my own judgment, that I won't be wearing a mask tonight.
Well, we will all be watching, and thank you so much for your patience today. Thanks.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your focus on Ukraine, on democracy, and on the well-being of the American people. Always wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you.